to another We Talk Chelsea podcast, a podcast of Sunday League football playing friends united for a love of Chelsea Football Club. And that makes it 3 wins in a row in the league for Chelsea Football Club for the first time, what it feels like in, I want to say, it's been 85 years. Chelsea defeating Fulham at the weekend, defeating 1-0 thanks to a Cole Palmer penalty. Timber, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and how are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. I'm not too bad. We're covering for Charlie this week. Charlie's away, but he should be back next week. I'm away next week. We're just rotating the panel. It looks like. Temba, you can never leave ever again. Just so you know. We'll go into a bit more detail on the game itself. There's lots to talk about in terms of Chelsea versus Fulham, and also some transfer news to talk about, some outgoings and some potential ingoings as well. But let's look to Chelsea versus Fulham. We are live on YouTube / at wetalkchelsea.com and live on TKST. If you have any comments, please feel free to put that in the chat. We'll respond as and when they do pop up. So as I said, Chelsea beat Fulham 1-0 at the weekend, a game result that I don't think either of us were expecting, was it, Tembo?
No, I fully expected a draw, but it was a hard-fought win in the end. I think we did well to get 3 points. We had to pull out all the stops, I think, to make sure we secured a 1-0 win and a clean sheet. Um, yeah, I think it was a very tough game, harder than it needed to be at times, but
Mm.
all that matters right now, I suppose, is 3 points.
Yeah, and we'll delve a little bit more into the ins and outs of the game, but it's generally pretty much the same script, different week. Was it a case of Chelsea playing well, or was it a case of Fulham playing better, worse than Chelsea? Because it seems like it was the exact same that we watch every single week.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of both. I think we played relatively well for parts of the game. And again, I think it's just those final deciding factors that often lets us down. Um, Also, I don't think the setup necessarily helped us play to our full potential, and I think that's what the main theme of this season is. We haven't been seeing this team playing to their full potential or having the
Yeah,
scenario to play that to their full potential. So, there's been so many let's say, different factors that have made us what we are right now. But
mm,
obviously, the consistent thing we've seen is that players don't get to play in the right positions. And how can you
yeah,
fulfill your best talent, your best players to get to their highest potential if you aren't going to utilize them to their best potential? I know not everybody's going to play in their position, but if you're going to severely hamper certain positions, like our midfield, as you've seen against Fulham when Enzo and Caicedo get to do what their best attributes are. You see the best of
yeah,
Chelsea, but if you don't facilitate them, we often struggle. And obviously, the players who have, let's say, the plug and play sort of attributes, where you see with your Gallagher type of player,
mm,
he's able to fit in any team that's struggling because he does the basics right, if you know what I mean.
yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I'm going on a tangent, but yeah, basically, I think we made it hard work for ourselves. But like I say, 3 points is all that matters in the end.
Exactly. 3 points is all that matters. And Pochettino, like I said, having 3 league wins in a row, albeit, games that Chelsea fans across the globe expect to win. Crystal Palace at home, Luton away, and Fulham at home. Is it a job well done, or is it simply just? I mean, I don't want to go into Poch talk. Do you know? Let's bypass that completely. Let's look at the lineup, how we did that. A familiar 4-2-3-1 formation. Petrovic. I can why Temba? Why? I called him Petkovic the other week as well. Petrovic in goal. Colwell, Silva, Disasi, Gusto, Caicedo, and Fernandez in the double pivot with Gallagher at the number 10, Cole Palmer on the right, Sterling on the left, and Armando Broja. As expected, to be honest. I don't think there was any other options really that we could have gone for when it comes to who to have and who would potentially play. Would you argue maybe Mikhailo Mudrik's potentially unlucky not to get in the squad over somebody like Sterling, especially with the pace of Kenny Tete? And Sterling is a bit off the boil in the last few games.
Yeah, I think the lineup made sense. Um, I didn't expect to see any other changes in that team. I think Pochettino went with the expected 11.
Yeah.
Um, I think we're starting to see a bit more of a consistent team now, with
Yeah.
barring injuries. Of course, Jackson's away, but
Mm.
you see that Palmer's pretty much a place in this team. Caicedo, Disasi, Silva, Fernandez, and Colwell as well. Obviously, goalkeeper, right back, and uh, like I say, centre middle striker sometimes can change due to injuries, but we're
Yeah.
starting to see more of a make of a team, and I think when the said players are back, we may see more of a consistent team, and I think it will most likely look like that. Maybe with Colwell out, or maybe
Yeah.
he moves to centre back and Brogier's out.
Mm.
But I wasn't surprised with starting 11. What about you?
Um, yeah, no, I wasn't. I think his hand was kind of forced of Chilwell coming back to full fitness. Carney could make an appearance on the bench as well. Mikhailo Mudryk was probably the only one I maybe expected to appear. But Benoit
Mm,
Badiashile on the bench. Also, I would have thought maybe at the end of the game, which we'll discuss again when Fulham were trying to pepper in crosses into the box. I thought it might have been worthwhile bringing in Badiashile to kind of help with the heading side of things.
mm, mm, mm. And I
Another.
just wanted to ask you, did you hear about Pochettino's comments after full time? He said that there was something that happened before the game that meant that
Yes.
it disrupted their, I don't know, their prep or something. I'm not exactly sure.
It
What did you
is
think of that?
massively vague. Like it could mean anything. Do you know what I mean? It disrupted their prep. What does he mean? Like a tire was
Yeah.
flat on the coach to take him to the station. Like what does that even mean? Like it could mean anything. If anybody in the chat or watching us now has got any indication of what that could be, please just feel free to put it in. Even if it's funny, by all means, make it up. I don't know. I mean, when I watched the game, I looked at the lineup, pretty standard from what I can see. I think I would have. I don't know. I think Cole
Mhm.
Palmer. I think he's better as a 10, if I'm really, really honest. I think it's one of his better games that we've seen for Chelsea. The way that he's able to receive the ball in the pocket, make those turns, make those direct runs. Some of the touches Cole Palmer was, playing, you know, I'm not going to say Hazard-esque, but some of the touches and the turns, kind of had resemblances to a lot more languid, lanky Lampard, Hazard, as it
Lampard?
were. I know, right? Um,
Mhm.
the one thing I wanted to ask you as well, as regards to this double pivot, there's been a lot of praise for Enzo Fernandez, probably one of his better games as well. Caicedo, is this the
Yeah.
best that we've seen the double pivot when these two in the play? And where does kind of Conor Gallagher fit in amongst this? If Conor Gallagher's playing at the 10, doing the off the ball work that not a lot of other players are doing that press that I think Pochettino is known for, the high press. Like especially towards the end of the game, it was all Gallagher doing that press work, and nobody was pressing with him. I think, and I'd argue, we actually missed, dare I say it, missed Nicholas Jackson's pressing because I think Brozier probably isn't as mobile. Was that something you agree with, or do you think I've spotted something that doesn't exist?
Um, I think you're onto something there. I think you are onto something there. But where I would like to add is, even with Jackson, I think sometimes the press looks disorganized, and I don't know if
Yeah.
that's you know him not teaching them zones of how to press, or maybe the
Mm.
makeup of the team. Because if you notice, sometimes it's like the front three and four are pressing, and the
Yeah.
midfield and defense sort of drop back. When you
Yeah.
press, you've got to press as a unit. So we often don't sit too high up the field. You see like teams like Liverpool and Aston Villa, they're literally on the halfway line trying to play you offside whilst they're pressing.
Would you argue that that's but as a result of having Thiago Silva in the lineup?
I don't know. I think that probably plays a big factor. Often, you don't see Silva trying to play people offside, or playing that high line. Obviously, he's 40 years old. For God's sake, he ain't gonna be
Yeah.
the fastest recovery defender. But we genuinely don't even have a recovery defender. If you think about
Mm.
it, I don't think anyone really has that pace to get back. You see it with Man City, where either they're timing so well, or Carl Walker's able to get them out of the situation. You know, Arsenal have it with Saliba, Liverpool have it with Van Dijk and Konate. Villa don't particularly possess quite quick players, but their
No,
offside trap is
trap
excellent.
is it's
Yeah,
like mid
same.
like mid 90s Arsenal.
Yeah, same as Tottenham. Same as Tottenham. We seen that firsthand. They caught us offside so many times, although they only had 9 players on the pitch. And you know, I think it's something that obviously Chelsea are going to have to adapt to. I don't. We've seen in the past, obviously, Pochettino adopt this high pressing team,
Yeah.
but we also heard from Julian Lorenz that he doesn't often work too much on the tactical side of the game, and I think these sort of players really need that. I don't know whether you
Yeah.
agree or not.
I mean, I think I'd argue there is some sort of. I think he's trying to build some sort of identity. What it is, I've no idea. But that surely rests with the coaching staff. Maybe he doesn't work too much on the tactical side of things, but in terms of the coaches beneath him, you know,
Hmm.
that's on him to kind of bring the staff that he needs in. Surely they'd be the ones that like kind of do that day to day type stuff. If I think of it like as a corporate side of things, I see Pochettino as like the CEO making like the final just changes, but then you've got a chief operating officer, so the person that's actually doing the day to day type of thing, the day to day things at training.
Hmm.
I think maybe that's what missing, and I think I don't know when it comes to an identity. I'm still not seeing it, other than the fact that we can create chances. Our XG was, 2. It's still particularly high. We're still creating chances. We had 17 shots on goal, but only 3 were on target. So does that suggest that Fulham were playing the low block particularly well? Getting their bodies in front of the line, or is it just a lack of creativity from Chelsea at the top? Because I don't think I don't. I want Amanda I really, really do. But I feel like he likes to drift out wide a lot of the time, and the problem with those strikers who drift out wide a lot of the time, and the relative age of the players behind, with the exception of Sterling, they don't have the nuance to make sure that somebody's in the box and around those centre backs. I think they're lacking in that scenario. I know you've got teams now that cut back, um, but I'm still not completely sure by Amanda Brozier. I, I don't know if he's kind of got back to his mojo following his injury last season. But I think maybe Armando Broja is probably one of the people that I would be considering that Chelsea would potentially send out alone in the summer to get some more first team experience once we bring in another striker. But how do you feel that Broja's fitting in, and is he doing enough to justify his continued run in the team? Striker problem aside.
No, I think he's doing below the bare minimum. Unfortunately, I don't see a future here at Chelsea for him. He doesn't ooze that bit of confidence. I think unless a ball's played in the air, we often don't see Brozier much in the game.
Yeah.
He like I say, he can sometimes skip past the player, often maybe not. He's not
Yeah.
confident with taking shots or testing the keeper unless he's sure he's going to get the right shot off. Again,
Mm.
how are you going to get yourself in the game with a team like Chelsea? We don't just play to the striker, we play in different avenues. He's not always going to get the ball, he's not always going to get as many touches as he wants. So the ones he
Yeah.
does have, he's got to make them count. So in that sense, I think the pressure's almost too big for him. Would he
Mm.
go out on loan and come back? I'm not sure. I think if he was on to go on loan, I think it would be with an obligation to buy or an option to buy, and then from there it probably means that he decides its future elsewhere. As obviously Chelsea will sign another striker, and
Mm.
as we've heard, reports he's considering his future if Chelsea do go for another striker. And I
Yeah.
think I'd say we'll talk about that later, but. Uh, I think his performance in the first half, he had a good header towards the near post, and uh, apart from that, I didn't really see much of him. I
Yeah.
don't know if
Yeah.
you agree.
No, I completely agree. I'm starting to not. I mean, it's sort of the header against Preston aside. Like, I'm not seeing the player that we saw flashes of at Southampton. Hi, Elliot, how you doing? Um, it's Yeah, it's tricky. I think I think the one thing that epitomizes it. There was a chance in the second half when the ball came to his feet, round about the penalty area. Instead of just taking a snapshot towards the goal.
Mm,
He took 1 touch, then 2 touches, then 3 touches, and 4 touches. And I thought,
mm,
surely there's a player that doesn't take as many touches as Nicholas Jackson, but Amanda Brosier's proven to be the point in case and the example of taking far too many touches when you just need to get a shot away.
yeah,
It's very, very tricky. I'd like to see him come good. Would he? I think when you look at the Cobham side of things and the connection to there, Chelsea fans are in a kind of in the middle because obviously, when I say middle, it's kind of split. It's kind of partisan if you think about it. There's fans that think, okay, well, this is an opportunity for pure profit for us to go out there and make those signings, but also there's fans kind of like myself that want to see the homegrown players, do well, break into the first team, and stay with the first team. But at Broja, I think we've let players go that have far higher potential than Amanda Broja, and I think that's a bizarre thing to take. Yeah, I just don't think he's the one with regards to leading the line. And I didn't think I'd say this, but I think having Nicholas Jackson back would probably be better because I feel like he links in much better with the three that's behind him. We'll move on in regards to Amanda Broja, move towards Cole Palmer scoring the goal in the injury time of stoppage time in the first half, 45 minutes +4. Sterling winning the penalty, clear cut penalty from what I can see. Um, you're shaking the head on that clear cut.
sorry.
Would you,
I'm a bit old-fashioned in that sense. I hate players who go down so easily. But I suppose it's every player nowadays. You can't
yeah,
single out a single player who wouldn't do that now. I
exactly.
just
And
think
if you think he was running away, he turned away from goal as well, so it wasn't like in an advantageous position. He kind of put
no,
himself
he
out of
turned
his.
inside. He turned inside.
Yeah, but he was onto his left foot.
Mm,
Raheem Sterling.
mm, mm.
Yeah,
True, true,
yeah.
true, true.
Regardless, it was a penalty. It was a penalty, and Cole Palmer stepped up to take it. And interesting stat about Cole Palmer: he's the second, he got the second most goal contributions, goals, assists for an under-21 player in the top 5 leagues, only behind Jude Bellingham. Cole Palmer is probably he's the signing of the summer, isn't he? He's completely. I don't know where Chelsea will be about having Cole Palmer in this team, and it just blows my mind that Manchester City let him go when he's doing bits, as they say.
No, no, I fully agree. I think it was a move obviously pushed by him from the sounds of it. He wanted to
Mm.
assure that he gets game time. And I think you see it a lot with the modern player now, where
Yeah,
if they're not given game time 1 season, 2 seasons, they're out the door and, they go elsewhere to get what they or to get the playing time that they need. So yeah, I think he's been a big addition for us. I'm still not quite sure if he fits right at right wing or the 10, but
I think it's
interchanging
the
wise,
10. I think it's the
yeah,
10. He's always, always, always looking for the ball. I think he works well as a right winger and he cuts inside a lot because he's got Malo Gusto making those runs because he's
mhm,
always looking to go inside. I don't think he's a winger. He just isn't.
same,
He's a 10.
yeah.
He is a 10. He wants to drop in deep. He wants to pick up the ball. He wants to play those passes. But it'd be interesting once all the teams, all the players are back to full fitness, which is, let's face it, very, very
Weirdly
unlikely.
enough, I also think that if he had played under Tuchel, where we played with the two inside forwards, he probably would have worked well in a system like that. With the
Yeah,
wing back advancing very far high, and him sort of tucked in with,
cutting inside. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Unfortunately, Thomas Tuchel's doing making moves, signing Eric Dyer for Bayern Munich. So we wish him the best. Um, let's have a look. So, how did you feel with the? It's tricky. I think I'm just trying to think of where to go if I'm completely honest, because it's pretty much the same thing every single week. There's a lot of stupid yellow cards as well in the game, for petulance and like Cole Palmer was given one for kicking the ball away for again, it's just silly, silly stuff and that discipline we've mentioned previously in the podcast has been an issue. Enzo Fernandez, Axel Disasi, Thiago Silva, Gusto, Palmer, all picking up yellow cards. One player I want to talk about before we move forwards is Petrovic. Um, has Petrovic done enough for you to warrant Sanchez should be worried to get back in the side? Because he's not made a mistake yet, from what I can remember. Even with some of the distribution, I can't seem to remember glaring a mistake as that Sanchez has made. Do you think he's done enough to kind of justify retaining his spot once Sanchez returns to full fitness?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult and good point you bring up because I think they're neck and neck at the moment. Uh,
Yeah,
Obviously, Petrovic on the form of run he's made, you can't really drop him. I think it would be harsh for the manager to sort of just move him aside. And with us potentially being out of the FA Cup, depending on how results go, who do you
yeah,
give more game time to? Because you can't rotate them game to game. You
no.
usually have a cup run keeper and a league keeper, you would say.
Mm.
Um, so do you now drop Sanchez and make Petrovic your number one, or do as soon as Sanchez is back, Petrovic is now on the bench again? I think we signed two keepers at a similar age. Maybe Petrovic not as much experience as Sanchez, but
Yeah,
they seem about at the same level of development if you look at how they've done so far. I personally feel more comfortable with Petrovic in goal than Sanchez. I think he's just
same.
less risk. Yes, just he does the basics right, and I think that's all we need. And I think he covers the goal quite well as well, and aerially he doesn't drop the ball from set
Nope.
plays, which I've seen Sanchez do quite a few times this season.
Mm.
When
He's
he
definitely
when he
gone.
clock, sorry.
I was just saying he's definitely more commanding of his area than from what I can see. He comes in, he claims those crosses, and the thing I like about him is he's not afraid to just get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I quite like. There comes a time from playing at the back, which I've seen so many times with Chelsea, and then they get caught in the middle of the park, and then a counter attack happens by the
Mhm,
opposition. But Petrovic
mhm,
isn't afraid to just get the ball launched when need to,
mhm,
clear some space, even if it doesn't get picked up by a Chelsea player, but
mhm.
just enough chance for us to reset and get rid. And I think that's what I quite like about him. And I'd like to see a continued run for Petrovic. I think we've got the League Cup is the next game, I believe, on the 23rd, I think, or the 22nd. One of those times,
Let me check.
with Middlesbrough the second leg at home, so he'd obviously continue there, and then
Yeah.
obviously with the FA Cup with Aston Villa on the Friday the 26th, I believe, in the evening,
Yeah.
which is weird
Yeah.
having an FA Cup game on Friday. He's bound to continue that, but I think Sanchez, by all accounts, I think he's due back around about that time from his knee injury.
Mhm.
There's when you look at the injuries, there's quite a few players that are kind of coming back in and around this time. Chalobah's not going to get in the squad. I think he's probably, once he's fit, they'll try and sell him.
Mhm.
Lavia, his knock's kind of only a few more days, so he's coming back into that into the team as well. Christopher and Nkunku coming back also in the next. I believe they're trying to have him ready for the Villa game,
Yeah,
which is
I
good.
believe so. Yeah.
Trying to get him ready for the Villa game. In an ideal world, you at least want him to make an appearance on the bench, but in the Middlesbrough game to try and get him that get him back to full fitness. But yeah, it's a tricky one with Petrovic. I think I'd quite like to see him continue his run of games, and it'd be interesting to see how he fares when we go to Anfield at the end of the month as well in the league against Liverpool for another 0-0 or a 5-0 pasting. One thing, the one thing I wanted to talk to you about is this Malay Gusto card situation in the first half.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
we saw a similar incident happen at a game that you and I are at when we lost 1-0 to Aston Villa at home, and you know he won the ball initially in the Villa game, follow through on that, studs are up. It's fairly high up on the ankle. At the time I said it's probably not a red. Hindsight, when everything's slowed down, you think maybe I see why it was given. But I think the problem that a lot of football fans have is there's no consistency. Either they're all reds or they're not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they're yellows. Um, I try and take my Chelsea bias off. I personally don't think it was a red card. I think it was definitely a yellow because there was no malicious into it. There was no power behind it. His leg wasn't straight. The leg was bent. He was trying to like trap the ball away, and he was off balance. Also, I think they're the mitigating factors to it. Obviously, in a slowed down motion, it looks worse. But
Yeah.
please feel free to tell me that I'm talking nonsense. But what do you make on that Maligusto challenge?
Yeah, I often don't like to see those sort of challenges given as red. I think he was extremely lucky, especially with today's rules. I think
Hmm.
most people looking at that, I know football fans will definitely say it's a red. But if you've ever been in that scenario, whatever, where you try to win the ball and you're slightly late, or you do get the ball and unfortunately your foot just meets the other person's foot because you got there first, it does happen. And I think the referee sort of gave him the benefit of the doubt. It's a derby,
Yeah,
and
which is
you know, he
rare for
probably,
Anthony Taylor.
yeah, very rare. He likes to be center of attention, but you know, it was also in the first half. Maybe that played a significant, point to it. Was he the one who gave Gusto the red card before as well?
No, it was Jared
Gillett was
Gillett.
it?
He-
Yeah.
the Australian
Okay. Right. Um, but I think the fact that it was the first half and maybe he had VAR to look at it, so really it should be the VAR who should overturn that decision or tell the referee to go look at it again.
Yeah,
Because well, they get the second and third replays, of course.
yeah,
I think they probably stuck with the on-field decision as they couldn't, you know, probably make their mind up. It was more of an orange card, maybe decision sort of
yeah,
thing. But I think in today's rules, it probably is a red card. But I personally wouldn't have given it. And if a Fulham player had done it, I wouldn't say. I would say the same thing. I don't think it was a red card.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's an in between one.
It's an in between. Do you think? Have you seen the rumblings with regards to like potentially introducing some form of orange type card, like a sin bin type situation for football, and in the event where it's kind of not really, but it is. So a player was to leave the field for about for 10 minutes. Are you in favour of bringing that into the modern game? I know this is a question away from Chelsea, but do you think it would make an interesting dynamic?
Yes and no. Depends how it's implemented. I think it hugely depends how it's implemented. I think you might get a bit more play acting to get these sin bins or orange
Yeah,
cards. We sort of see it now with penalties. We see it now with red cards. Players touched and they drop on the floor, roll around their eyes as if they've been shot. So it's an interesting dynamic. I think we we potentially will see, but it depends how it's implemented. Like I've said, um, do players start getting orange cards for two yellows, or is it a scenario of a red card now becomes an orange card? I'm not exactly sure what the ruling on that is. If you happen to know.
I've no idea. I've heard the floating, the idea of it, and then also that there's another change that they're doing in, is it the MLS? If a player's down for longer than 15 seconds, he has to leave the field for 2 minutes or something
Right.
along the lines. I don't know if you heard that. That's the new rule they're bringing in to try and stop time wasting, but we digress on that one. But yeah, no, the Malagusto challenge is an interesting one. I'm sure if you're a Fulham fan, you would have said it was a red card, but just like being a Fulham fan, you are wrong. Let's move on to transfer talk in this scenario because we are
Oh, Tom, just
halfway.
quickly before.
Yeah.
Just before you mention that, what did you think of us going to a false nine and also Ben Chilwell returning at left wing?
Yes. So yeah, Ben Chilwell is definitely in there. Completely forgot about that. I don't think he impacted the game too much. It's great to see Chilwell back in a Chelsea shirt. You know, when Chilwell and James are fit for their 3 games a season, it's always great watching Chelsea. And I think it was weird. I think we kind of slotted to a three with Colwell playing as the left centre back, and then Chilwell playing as a winger, out and out winger. It looked like it was good to
Hmm.
see him back in a Chelsea shirt. You know, I don't think he really impacted the game much, but you can definitely see how far he pushes himself forward. There was a lot of times he was playing the Alonso role when he's trying to get on the end of some crosses. But it was good to see him back, but I don't think he particularly impacted the game. I would like to see Chilwell back to full fitness, and I'd like to see Colwell, if he's going to stick with the Sassy, which it looks like he's going to for reasons I'm not too sure on because I'm yet to be convinced. But Colwell and Sassy playing in the middle together with each other to give Silva a rest. What about you?
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with what you said. I just think Chilwell at left wing is still a very spooky thing. Um,
Yeah, it
yeah,
just it does.
I don't like that dynamic. Again, well, what we have three left back. Well, we had three left backs at the club. We still have two. Obviously, they're injured, and we're still playing Colwell in his unfavored position. Although I thought he actually had a good game,
Yeah,
despite what a lot of people said, he did actually have a good game at left back. He made quite a few tackles and interceptions. Played quite a few passes. Obviously, doesn't really overlap or help his winger a lot.
no,
Again, that's what stifles us, I think, going forward. But
yeah,
defensively, I think he was quite solid. But like I say, I think that sort of hinders him because then it gives Poch the idea, you know what, he played well, let me carry on playing him there.
yeah. He's kind of equated a rug for his own back, really, in that game. Um, I think Cole was quite good. He reminded me of some point. I said it on Saturday in our WhatsApp group. Like sometimes when he picks the ball up and he goes on those runs, just to the into the final third, it does remind me a little bit of when Rudiger just decided to start sprinting off with the ball in some of the games for us. I'm not saying he's like Rudiger, but I'm just saying it reminds me of Rudiger when he would do that. But yes, let's move across to transfer talk on this one. So Chelsea are looking at targeting a striker and a left back, according to reports. The left back's interesting because we just let one leave on loan, isn't it?
hmm Yeah, yeah. We had five, well, what was it, four left backs at the start of the season. We had Lewis Hall,
Yep,
Kukurea, Ben Chilwell, and
yep.
Matson. Uh,
Two
two
are
are
out on
playing.
loan. One's just come back to fitness, and one is injured to the end of February, so probably not going to be fit till middle of March.
Yeah, and we haven't even played. And we're playing a centre back at left back, which is
Yeah,
very, very odd. Very, very odd. I think it's absurd that we've got that many fullbacks and we still after a fullback.
yep,
Obviously,
agreed.
injuries haven't helped. I suppose Chilwell probably is the standout one, maybe going forward. But I think Kukurea is the more all-round left back. Again, he's injured, so understandable. But you have two promising fullbacks in Lewis Hall and Ian Matson. I suppose they needed more game time and first team minutes. But from what we've seen of them in previous games, I would have given them the shot because like you said, like we've all said, Colwell doesn't look natural at left back. He's very awkward in his defending. He often doesn't like to engage. He defends like a centre back out wide, if you know what I mean. He doesn't
Yeah,
he doesn't defend like a full back out wide. He's not in your face type of defender. He's just trying to stop you from either.
creating. He's waiting for you to make the mistake before he makes the tackle, isn't he? To
Yeah,
dispossess
yeah,
you. He's not.
yeah,
He's not the pressure kind of centre back.
yeah. He's not like Aspie. I think he was the sort of epitome of a good 1v1 defender. He would square you up so tightly that you either had to beat him with a lot of pace or you just weren't getting past him. He was so good at just sort of seizing you up into a position where you're going into the centre back or he's going to make the block at the end of the day. And
Yeah,
I think Cole, he just looks a bit awkward. He looks a bit dangly, if I could say that, if you know what I
yeah.
mean. Yeah,
No,
I just don't
I get it.
feel comfortable in that
I get it.
position.
I think when I mean we're all fairly certain that Thiago Silva is potentially going to leave Chelsea at the end of his contract. I know his kids are in the youth system,
Mhm.
but Cole was probably the person that's going to take over from Silva, so maybe he's kind of got to stick it out in that position. Aspilicueta played left back for so many games for us before he was put across to right back. So maybe he's kind of thinking, okay, well, if I need minutes, I've kind of got to play in a position that I don't want to play in. I do
Mhm.
find it interesting regarding the left back situation that we've got two left backs out on loan with options to buy in their contracts with Newcastle for Lewis Hall. I think it's 35 million. And then, interestingly, Ian Maitson signed a contract extension to 2026. Do you think that's a sign of intent in regards to maybe Maitson being given a chance next year? Or do you think it's just to retain his transfer value before he goes on loan to Dortmund?
Um, I think it's probably the latter. I think it's probably to retain his transfer value, and I think if we are to go make one or two more signings, these are the sort of fees you need from players who are not in your team or not in the manager's sort of setup. I don't
Yeah.
think the manager will be here next season. So, but
You think it'd be gone in the summer?
yeah, I think so. I think if we don't get European football, he will not be here. And from reports, I think that's what we've seen
What
so
if he gets
far.
what if he gets the League Cup but we don't qualify for Europe?
Doesn't League Cup getting into Europe? I'm not quite
I
sure.
don't think it's automatic. I can't remember the rules, but it depends on who gets top, or is it the top four? Well, mate, is it only if you get top four in the League Cup out? If you
Was
win
it
the League Cup and you're
FA
in the top four, you get a position. You get an extra
low?
position for, or has that changed?
I think it's cup winners do get in Europe. A specific, well, I don't know if it's changed, but I do remember when Blues got into Europe for that reason when they won
But
the Carling Cup.
where was that? 2010.
2010 or 2011, 2011, I think it
Um,
was.
okay, maybe it's the
Yeah.
same, but hopefully, yeah. I guess we'll see. We'll see how it goes from there. But it's a bold claim. Do you think there's no chance whatsoever, or do you think that's exactly why the club's only giving him a 2-year deal?
Yeah, I think that's probably a big reason. I think they saw the mistakes they made with Potter. You know, we gave him a 5-year contract, and everyone had turned on him by 6 months in.
Mm,
Um, Although obviously he wasn't in control of the fact we had 40 players, and the board just went ballistic and bought every single player they could in January. Half the team wanted to leave because
yeah,
contract issues weren't sorted out and stuff like that. Well, there was a whole lot I think Potter had to deal with behind the
yeah.
scenes. Um, I think so. The next manager was always going to be viewed as sort of not a stopgap. What can I say? Looked at with more care in terms of the long term.
Transitional.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In terms of the long term future, I think the club protected themselves with not giving a hefty payout for a manager. So a 2-year contract made sense, and I think he's earning 10 million a year. Pochettino. I think
Easy work if you can get it.
yeah, yeah. So again, although it may seem like it's only a 2-year deal, he's still earning. He's the third highest paid manager in the league, believe it or
Yeah,
not. Um, so yeah, I think if he doesn't get Europe, as we've seen with reports, I don't see why the club wouldn't get rid of him and
yeah.
go elsewhere. Especially with the clubs above us, I think if they have any ambition and want to return that money, they should get rid of him for us to advance forward as a club.
Mm.
I don't know whether you agree.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not. It's weird. I was poached out briefly, fickle Chelsea fan, but I think I'm not. I think it's just I'm not potch out and I'm not potch in. Does that make
Mm,
sense?
mm,
I think it's just again. I just see this as kind of like a, a transitional type season, really. Just him to he's kind of got a free hit to kind of say, hey, do what you can, but just in the summer, if it doesn't work, we'll get rid of you and bring someone else in, whether it's De Zerbi or Jose, whoever he wants to bring through, or bring back to the club. It depends, but I don't know. I don't know. I just want to see us playing nice football. And 3 wins in a row is 3 points, 9 points on the board, and it takes us up into ninth position above Newcastle, which just goes to show, fuck you, Newcastle. Anyway, I digress. We are, oh, yeah, we're only 1 point behind Man United, which is weird. Like,
yeah,
because I thought Man
but
United were doing, yeah, like Man United were seem miles ahead of us at one point, and there's been a massive drop off. We're only, we're 3 points off sixth, so it's not entirely unfeasible that something can happen. But given the last couple of years, I'm not holding my breath in fear of that. We'll go back to the transfer talk. Obviously, Chelsea forever linked with buying a striker, as it seems. The reports currently gurgling in regards to 3 names have popped up. One of them being, I think this is the most prominent one, with most likely to happen, albeit potentially not in this window, but Evan Ferguson from Brighton. Again, another player who, whilst he's got fantastic potential, a player that's going to cost, it looks like, in excess of £100 million. it's a lot of pressure to put on a man to come in and start banging in goals. Surely, if you're going to spend £100 million, Timber, do you just go for somebody that's out and out proven, not necessarily in the Premier League, but also with Osimhen as well? But there's also other options, aren't there, that Chelsea could potentially look for at least until the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite an interesting conversation of the short-term options we've been linked to. I think the other one was Duran from Aston Villa. Um,
I've not seen that one. That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Again, he's not really starting for Aston Villa. I know. Obviously, we're nowhere near where they are at the moment, but
Yeah,
does he really, move the bar in terms of for us?
no,
I'm not sure.
no.
I
I
think
think he's a decent player, but I just don't think he moves the bar. I really don't.
yeah, I think he's probably on that same level as Broja. I think he's probably a bit better in terms of in front of goal.
Mm.
His record seems okay from what I've seen of his stats. He's much better in the air. So does that maybe play into what we're planning to do? Because if you see like his aerial duels, it's a 61%, where I was comparing it to Broja and it was something around 26%. So again, you can see the big difference in terms of his hold up play and challenges
Mm.
in the air, because we genuinely don't actually have many good attackers on the ball, do we?
No,
Especially in some cases.
when it comes to aerially, I think with the exception of Brozier, who isn't particularly that
And
good in the
Silver,
air, but
yeah,
he's just taught. And who? Sorry,
Silver. He's,
and
he's pretty
Silver. Yeah,
decent. Yeah.
I think Buddy Sheila, I think's scored
Yeah,
a few
yeah, he's
headers,
he's actually
but
very good
again,
at it
he's
as
just
well.
he's not got to the form
Doesn't even play.
as of yet. No, really. Well, he's just constantly just not found his form, and he's not found his
Mhm.
fitness. Really, he seems to get back in the squad, or at least get an appearance, and then picks up a knock, which is telling of Chelsea because it seems that every player that we buy has that issue. There's not the. It's not just similar. I mean, I'll ask the question in a little bit. What do you think of Evan Ferguson? Seriously, as an option for Chelsea, there's potential there. Do you know what I mean? He plays great for Brighton, but again, it's just another player that's it's just another player that's there. He's not really. Does he move the needle? Do you get excited about the potential of bringing in Evan Ferguson, or is it just another example of okay, we're going to spend 100 million and hope for the best?
Potentially, but again, he then has to come to a half broken team in a sense. He has to get used to the players. Is it a bit too much pressure for him?
Mm,
He's quite a young player. He's already settled into Brighton. He's just starting to find his form. He still rotates with Welbeck and João Pedro in terms of his starting positions. I don't think it's fair on us to rely on another young player, who still needs
yeah,
to kind of learn the game and his best attributes. And to come in halfway through the season like this,
mm,
I'm, I don't know. It is a bit too much to ask of him. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, you've seen he scored 6 goals in the league. Uh,
In 18 matches as well, so he's only started 11 of them, so it's a strike rate of 1 in 3. So it's not moving the needle just yet for me. Um, yeah,
yeah. I think I totally agree with you. I think he's better off staying at Brighton for maybe 2, 3 more years, develop his
yeah,
game. I think a move to Chelsea just halts his career completely. So a young option for me, I don't think really moves the needle. In fact, probably just adds to the problem we already have.
yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
know
I
if
don't
you.
know if No, I think it does. I think it just has the problem have. I think we need to bring in someone experienced, and there's been rumours and rumblings that I think I'm going to bring up the details here for you. That I don't know if you want to fill people in, but obviously rumblings are potentially of a loan deal for Karim Benzema from El Ittihad from the Saudi league. I am in favour of this. I am former Ballon d'Or winner. He's 36 years old now.
Mhm.
Apparently things aren't going too well for him in Saudi in terms of morale, as it were. Is that I'm led to believe? Is that correct?
Yeah, and he hasn't trained for 2 or 3 weeks, I believe, when I read reports earlier. He doesn't
Mm,
get on with the manager. So Yeah, there's been rumblings from Matt Law, from what I've seen from from the Telegraph, about him for Chelsea potentially looking at the Saudi league, and he was one of the names mentioned. Uh, but apparently, it has to be PFI have to approve this loan deal first, and they don't want particularly him to leave because they don't want to. He's a poster boy for a scene over there, so they don't want that sort of bad image of, oh, okay, all the players are abandoning Saudi now. As we've seen reports,
Mm.
apparently not too many players are happy over there. Jordan
Yeah,
Henderson being notably mentioned one. Um,
yeah,
so if that does go through, yeah, yeah, and that we have to agree that the club pay his wages. So
yeah.
his weekly,
Exactly. That's the tricky one, isn't it? From the Shed End podcast, there, Benzema would be great, but we would have to agree that his parent club, El Ittihad, will pay his wages, especially if the reports are true about his weekly wage. I think he's on. Is it like £600,000 a week or something like that?
ridiculous, something ridiculous. Let me just quickly check.
But how do you split that in terms how does that work in terms of financial fair play? Is it still like a free hit on in regards to you're allowed to go over for the sake of a loan deal? Or I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. But it'd be interesting if we can try and get a player like Karim Benzema
Four
in because
million a week.
4 million a week, perfect. Well, we'll just play three. We'll play 75% of it. We'll be fine. We're willing to spend 100 quid on. Let's do the maths on that. We're willing to spend £100 million on Evan Ferguson in this transfer window. Karim Benzema playing £3 million a week, £4 million a week. We can get him for what? 20 weeks at that price? Perfect. Why not? Stupid
Yeah.
Tom Bowley would probably buy that. Let's face it.
Yeah, so apparently, anyway, that was the more unrealistic one. The more likely one was Roberto
Yes.
Firmino.
Which initially earlier on in the week I thought, okay, that's not too bad. But when I'm looking at his appearances and I look at his form in the Saudi league, it's not particularly blowing doors open. 17 matches, 3 goals. He wasn't exactly prolific at Liverpool either. And again, he's not an out-and-out number nine. He's a false nine, isn't he?
Yeah, I think this is not the ideal player for us. I don't think he would really, again, move the needle. I think we don't have potent enough wingers to cover like Sane and Mane and Salah did
Mm.
for Liverpool. We sort of need a striker to lead the line in terms of goals. We don't need a nine to drop in deep and create for others because they're all almost as useless at finishing as each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, the manager doesn't rate him there. Apparently, they don't really get on either. He's looking for an escape out. His
Mm.
wages are a bit more realistic. I believe he's on 330k a week. So
Yeah.
if their parent club was to maybe pay 50% or 70% or whatever, I don't know, 20-30%, it's a bit more realistic of a thing we could
Yeah.
negotiate. But I don't think he's exactly what we want, and I think we've sort of seen this scenario before where he kind of reminds me of those bad strikers we've signed in the past, of like Falcao and
Pato.
yeah, he seems like he would fall in that ilk of you'll remember he was at Chelsea and just think like he did
Mm.
absolutely nothing.
He just
And
scored a penalty, didn't he, Pato? Is that all I remember? He just scored a penalty. Was it against
yeah,
Villa?
against yeah,
That was
yeah.
it. That's the only thing I remember about his time at Stamford Bridge. But it's worked for us in the past with Higuain. I mean, Higuain came in and scored some goals. I think he got like,
Mm,
but he
mm.
did score. Was it like 5 in 9 or something like that? Like we
Yeah,
didn't, he didn't
around
start
that,
and play a lot of
around
games.
that.
But it's fairly potent for what we have at the moment. Let's face it, Timber. Beggars can't be choosers in this scenario. But if you, it's interesting here. We look at this. I was just looking at the stats in regards to Bobby Firmino here. I don't think he would join us anyway because I don't think he would do that to Liverpool. I think he's seen as a cult hero, and I don't think he'd want to risk
I,
that.
I,
But if you look at it here, he's not scored since August. Look at it here. If I bring, for the benefit of people listening to this, he's not scored since he scored a hat trick on the 11th of August, his first game against El Hazim, and he's played consistent 90 minutes here, 90 minutes there. previous, and then all of a sudden he's making appearances in off the bench. So he's kind of fallen out of favour, and he's not scored since. So
Hmm.
I don't think it's worth that risk. I really don't think it's worth the risk. I think if you're going to bring in a player on loan, you've kind of got to see what you can do to try and get Benzema in. Whether it's sending somebody in the opposite direction, fuck knows who. Oh, no idea. I literally can't think. But we don't know. Bowley could work his magic. We managed to sell Koulibaly for nearly what we paid for him, so you never know. You never know. But I think Benzema. But what are the other options out there? Really, we have to kind of rely on these leagues, Saudi leagues, LMLS, like to kind of bring these players in. I can't think of any strikers that are just sitting there on the bench currently begging for minutes. Could we leverage the fact that the Euros are coming up in the summer and people need to get some game time in?
I honestly think that the club possibly won't even sign anyone. I lean towards that option, especially
Risky.
with it and Nkunku coming back. We've seen
Hmm.
Pochettino use him as a nine,
Yeah,
and I particularly didn't like to see that because a lot of the ugly stuff I don't think Nkunku is very good at doing.
but the
And
problem with that is if you play him as a not, if you play him as a nine, if don't play him as a nine, sorry, he can only play as a 10,
mhm.
which is where Cole Palmer plays best. So what do you do in that scenario?
I think you
Is
just have to move Palmer to the wing. I think it works if our fullbacks are fit. I think it does work.
if our fullbacks are fit. This is
Yeah,
Chelsea Football Club timber. If our
yeah.
fullbacks are fit, it doesn't happen. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. It'd be interesting to see what kind of moves that we make in this scenario. The window. There's still 15 days left of it. I'm kind of. It feels a bit weird that we haven't signed anybody yet. When you look at the Killer Leg's previous spending over the last three windows now, four. We've kind of gung ho with this. This is our fourth. This is the fourth window in the Clear Lake. Um, it feels a bit strange that we haven't signed anyone just yet. Um, I don't know. I don't know. Let's look ahead in regards to the games coming up. We can briefly preview, I guess, but I'm sure you probably talk it in more detail with Charlie when he's on the podcast back next week. Even just put a message in the chat here. Charlie will be back next week with a kiss, so can't
Mhm.
join us for the hour, but can come and watch us. So I appreciate Charlie. We'll see you next week. I won't be because I will be in Nashville. Um, yeah, we'll
Mm,
briefly touch about it. This Middlesbrough game. Um, it's a must win, isn't it, Temba? What would you like to see from that? If we can get a semi fit Nkunku back to the fold, would you argue potentially starting the strongest team completely possible to try and turn this over, playing maybe not fully fit Nkunku, or do you protect him and try and bring him on in the second half to give him the minutes that he needs to get back to full match fitness?
no, I don't think starting him's a good idea. I think you have to go with a similar team as we've seen today. Sorry, on the weekend.
Yeah,
Um, I think maybe you have to take that option of Chilwell at left back. I know that's not going to happen. I know he
yeah,
probably will come on as a left winger, but I
mm,
think if you really are, you've got to make sure you score that early goal. We've
yeah,
really got to make sure we score that early goal. I think we will see the same starting 11 as we've seen the last game. It's a big, big, big game. I think it's potentially a his his what can I say, like sort of it will define his managerial reign at
yes,
Chelsea.
it will. It will, 1,000,000%. I think this is. I have to agree. It's going to define his whole reign at Chelsea Football Club, and it's tricky because you know what Middlesbrough are going to do. They've taken a lead at the Riverside, so they're just going to come back and they're going to put the low block in place and try and grind out 90 minutes, which I think they could be capable of doing. But it's just trying to put Cole Palmer in the best position to unlock him, and I don't think him playing as a false nine is going to do that.
Yeah, I was going to ask
Historically,
who would you start if you were to pick the 11, or who do you think Poch is, and who do you think Poch is going to start?
who who was um who was on the right wing for us in the first leg?
Madueke? No, no.
I'm
Let
gonna
me
go- I'm gonna go to the
check.
game. Sorry, I got it here. It was Madueke.
Yeah.
Madueke and Gusto, I believe. Madueke didn't have his best game from what I remember against Borough,
Mm.
and he got overtaken far too many times by who I can't remember who was on the left side. I think it was Hackney, and Hackney just kind of seemed to have him. Let's have a look. Who would I start? Who would I start? I would put Palmer at 10.
Hmm.
I'd argue potentially starting Madueke again, just
Yeah.
because I like how direct Madueke is on the ball.
Yeah.
Short of the
Yeah.
game against Fulham, where I felt like he really struggled to get into it, and kind of his
Hmm.
decision making wasn't the best,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when
Yeah.
we in the last 10 minutes. I think that game in the last 10 minutes against Fulham really highlighted
Issues.
our naivety
Yeah.
as players. We didn't just like run it into the corner, run down clock time, just retain the ball. That's the only thing we needed to do. We were too gung ho, and we were put under pressure for the last 5 minutes in that game. But I think if I was to look at those squad of players and who would I start? Petrovic or Chains, Gusto. Obviously, I think that's a given. Silva again, I think it's a given. Sassy, I think he'll start him, but I'd like to see Colwell there. I'd like to see Colwell and Silva as a pairing because I think Colwell's got pace. I think he does to kind of help for Silva, and maybe starting Chilwell as a left back. I think it'd be a good thing to do because he's going to bomb forward. I can see a little smile on your face, which means you're probably going to send me something in the private
No, I
chat.
was just reading Dale's comment. Sorry. Mm.
Um, it It's you start Timber 1 to 11. Well, you probably do. Timber. I don't know if people. I say I don't know, but you will not have seen Timber play football. But Timber's got the ability to just turn it on and become an absolute baller, but he just decides to not use it for about 95% of the time. We digress. I think the back four is going to be Gusto Silva, Chill. Okay. I would go with Colwell and Chilwell, and then in the pivot I would go with Caicedo and Fernandez again. Um, Oh, it's tricky because like if you take Gallagher out, you take work rate out, and you need somebody that's going to work off the ball. And I don't think Fernandez is strong working off the ball. Um, and
Hmm.
I haven't seen it just yet for Caicedo, being strong and working off the ball. So, yeah, Caicedo and Fernandez. Is it too much of a risk if you potentially take Caicedo out and have Gallagher and Fernandez start as the double pivot?
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, why not? I'm thinking like it's FIFA. Let's face it. Like, well, he's 76 rated, so no, I'm joking. Um, it's is it too much of a risk? Because I haven't seen the Caicedo that we've bought, that we spent 100+ million pounds on just yet. So maybe Caicedo, but I don't know. It's that double pivot is a problem thing, and Gallagher's kind of he performs so well off the ball, not necessarily on the ball, but
I was gonna
who do you
say
Who do you take out? Like,
Gallagher. I think you drop Gallagher and you start with a strong front four. I think
a strong.
you have to play attacking, and I think Enzo, Caicedo, Sterling, Madueke, Palmer, and Broja is
Okay.
your best attacking threat.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Do you think we're going to overturn it and get to the final?
Depends on the first half. Really depends on the first half. I think we
You think
often
the early goal's key?
the early goal is definitely key. I think if Middlesbrough score at any time, we're
Head,
potentially
head
out.
heads go down. Heads
Yeah,
will
yeah,
go down. I think the squad's far too young. I think to kind of overturn that kind of deficit. I think we will go through. I
yeah.
think we will. Will it be difficult? Yes. Could it go to? Could I see it going to penalties? Absolutely. I think one thing I'd like us to do is if it's raining, follow in on Glover as much as you possibly can. That
Mm,
Middlesbrough goalie, because nobody was following in his shots, and he dropped the ball a lot of times,
yeah,
and nobody's
yeah.
anywhere near him to challenge for it. So if I'm Pochettino, I'm telling Brozier, you follow in every single shot,
Just take a
try and
shot,
attack on
even
that. Take
Sterling,
the shot,
anyone else. Yeah,
take the
and
shot. We'll see.
and also another thing, there's no VAR, so some offside calls,
Let's stud,
we
let's
may get
stud,
away with.
motherfuckers. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's do it. Let's two for everyone. We can get away with
And
it now.
and do you think
Gusto's gonna love it.
do you think he potentially gets sacked if we lose and the whole crowd starts booing?
Yes.
Do you think the pressure starts to mount on him because that Villa game I think will be hostile reception for him?
I think if we lose to Middlesbrough, that Villa game won't be fun because I fully expect Villa to beat us.
Yeah,
Fully
yeah.
expect Villa to beat us.
Regardless, I
Yeah,
think we lose that game.
regardless.
I
Yep,
think Middlesbrough is literally his cup final. And
it
the
is.
comments he made when he said, you know, I don't want the players to feel pressure against Middlesbrough. I want them to enjoy. You know, there's no pressure of winning, sort of thing. Yeah, you know, I think it did rub a lot of fans up the wrong way. Uh, you know, we've seen
Especially
last
at the
season
start of
with
the
Potter.
season. And last season, at the start of the season, Pochettino says we want to win everything. We
Yeah,
set out to
yeah,
win everything, but then he's changed his tack. Like, I don't want any pressure on these kids.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
mollycoddled in a bit too much. I think I don't necessarily agree with Troy Deeney's side of things. You know, when he's calling out what's his face. You
Like
see
Steve
that?
yeah,
Yeah, Darbo, yeah, ex Chelsea, and he's just like, yeah, he's just not good enough. He's not playing well. Yeah, I don't want to see that. But you want to say, give him a kick up the arse sometimes. Yeah, I
yeah.
hope we go through. But I think that's everything. Unless you can think of anything else.
No, it's probably a
No,
score
that's it.
prediction, and
Right.
that's
Hell
probably the
yeah.
end
I'm
of it.
gonna go with a 2-0 win.
Wow. Okay. I
2-0
think,
win, and I wouldn't be surprised if we went to extra time.
yeah. I don't know if there is extra time.
Oh, it
I
goes to
think it
penalties,
might go
doesn't
to
it? Oh,
penalties. Yeah.
balls.
So I think
I
it's a
will
2-1.
say 2-1 and penalties and go through on
Yeah.
penalties. Petrovic
Oh,
heroics.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope so.
I hope so.
But
Anyway, we
yeah.
digress. Well,
Cool.
that has been the Week Chelsea podcast. We will be back next week. Well, I won't be, but Temba and Charlie will be back next week on Monday at 9:30 to preview it, unless they decide to go live straight after the semi-final, which they may do. But we'll let you know.
That would be great.
We'll change it. Chances are it might be just that. But yes, if you have found us and you're watching us on X/Twitter or you're watching us on YouTube, please, if you can hit that subscribe button on YouTube, that'd be really, really nice if you could do that. We'll be back next week, potentially on Tuesday, straight after the game with Temba and Charlie up the Chelsea.
Right,